Hello, all of you beautiful people, and welcome again to another episode of Isms. I am your host, Grant Trimble, and in this show, as usual, I talk to creatives of all kinds, from models, sculptors, photographers, etc., that utilize nudity in their work. The whole purpose of this is to try and understand with greater depth the message, meaning, and choices behind the people traveling this path to foster a greater comprehension of the use of nudity in the arts. I myself fall into this category, but why others do this can, of course, be wide-ranging. Despite the very long history of this discipline, there still remains many misunderstandings and objections to this practice, so my aim is to alleviate some of the stigmas surrounding this endeavor. In addition, I hope to add some context to the greater cultural dialogue regarding sexuality by challenging how nudity is perceived in our society. In this episode, I'm able to talk to the French photographer Lobbiaz. Lobbiaz has been featured in a number of exhibitions and publications over the years, including See Heads and Juxtapose. You can go to his website, lobbiaz.com, to see a bigger list. But currently he runs, with his wife, a concept store they started in Paris that is both a lingerie shop and a gallery called Les Rituals. I'm probably mispronouncing this, so I apologize, but we do talk about this endeavor later in the interview, along with many other subjects. We get pretty heavy in this conversation, starting pretty quickly with topics such as the existence of God, why he calls himself a troll, why he doesn't have a TV, and even the use of language. As this is how things begin, you are maybe picking up on the fact that Lobbiaz has a philosophical disposition. Personally, I love this, and I think it translates very nicely to the nature of the show. Further on in the interview, we talk about his work, sensuality, how he got into photography, respect for the models he works with, changing his shame, plus more. I think this is my longest episode so far, and all of it stays pretty heavy. As Lobbiaz tackles each question and topic with the heart of a philosopher, my suggestion, as usual, is to sit back, relax, and let what he has to say sink in. The first question that I have for you is a little bit unrelated to these things that we were just kind of started talking about. But when you go on your Instagram stories or your Instagram, and in your stories, you have a collection entitled Friends. And it's, maybe you can explain what it is to people who haven't seen it. But it's the collection, the stop stories, the real friends. Yeah. I have tons of. Yes, can you
explain that for us?
That's a nice way to start. Yeah, nice way. You know this sentence: the more I know men, the more I prefer my dog.
Yeah.
You know it. I don't know if it's they say it also in English, but in French, it's something that you can use. Everybody knows it. The more I know men, the more I love my dog. But yeah, I don't know. I like these animals. I have a story with animals because I have a dog since 5 years now, and it's changed. It changed a lot of things in my life. You know, I am not scared about dogs anymore, and it's a change, in someone's life, because every day you can see a dog and you feel differently. And now I started this collection. Every time I see a dog and I can interact with him or take a picture, I put it on my Instagram to see. It's my crew.
Yeah.
It's, when they do that, Instagrammers, they always tag each other because they want to make you believe they're a family of friends and everything's so nice. And I have dogs,
Yeah.
And, the dog in philosophy, it's not nothing, it's when I think dog, it reminds me of, the Diogenes. I don't know how you call this guy in English.
I'm not sure of that one.
The one who was living outside,
Is it a historical figure?
Yeah.
Is he an ancient Greek?
Is it? Yes.
Is it the Diogenes?
Yeah, must be this name. Yes, Diogenes.
Yeah, he was known for being kind of a somewhat grumpy and like living in jars, and he would
exactly. He was living in a jar, and the time
Socrates,
when Socrates came to him to ask him, I don't know why, I don't know what, because he was asking
all the people all these questions all the time.
Yeah.
The guy just answered, "Can you please move away from my son?" Because he was blocking the sun from his jar, so he
Yeah.
couldn't get sun in his
Diogenes.
face
It's
anymore.
Diogenes.
It was something annoying to him. And Diogenes is the cynicism, and the word cynicism, it has something to do with the spirit of the dog and this guy.
Yeah. Diogenes is, for some of my friends that are listening, we're familiar with Diogenes. He's one of my friends kind of became sort of obsessed with him a bit, and talked about him all the time.
Yeah, maybe that was him, the real philosopher, not Socrates. You don't know, because he was in the streets, saying like,
Yeah, he was kind of known for not being the most pleasant character. I think he supposedly even threw his feces at people at various times. So
yes, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
I identify a lot with this guy. But really, because I think, if you want to think, if you try to think, if you try to discuss with people, express your opinion, it's not always that easy. And you have to have I have a troll in me, and this troll, it's a philosophical way of asking things to people,
Mm-hmm.
There is something about provoking, like when you're sick of people, you can't stand them anymore. Yeah, you just have to send them a message. Maybe sometimes you want to send your feces in their face. I don't know, maybe. It happens.
Is it to provoke the emotional? Is to try to get the true character out? Is that what it is you're trying to do there?
What do you mean? You mean, but why do I identify with him, or why would I why would I think it's funny to throw feces at people?
No, well, you said you're talking about provoking and to be a little bit of a troll.
Yes.
Is it to see people's kind of true character, or?
Yes, definitely. Trolling is like, I don't know. Let's imagine this thing. Someone is saying how peaceful he is and how he hates violence and stuff, and you just make him one remark, and one sentence after he's insulting you, and he loses his temper. That's the thing I really like. I think.
Well, yeah, so this is something I've been thinking about lately, is just even that the concept of metaphysics, and I think a lot of people don't have a very clear sort of metaphysical disposition. And I guess to explain what I mean by that a little bit more is that, as you mentioned before, you studied philosophy and as well as I did, and it's very easy to speak very idealistically. And as you were saying, trying to provoking people a little bit, sometimes you can kind of see sort of their true spirit, and even determine if they actually do act consistently in accord with their real true beliefs, like their core beliefs or their metaphysical beliefs.
Yes. Without going to metaphysical, I don't think, even before that higher level of thinking, I guess there is something else. It's today. Okay, we are all like, everybody says we're becoming products. I think what you look online right now, what you can't stand when you say we're so superficial, we're so this, so that. And they say this sentence: if it's free, then you are the product. I think it's correct, but then I think you have to analyze why it's correct and what does it mean. And when you think about that, we're all products, and we're all like tiny media relay. There are many times, in your life where you are asked something about society, politics, whatever, news. What happened yesterday or whatever. And your answer, if you think about it, your answer is just an answer that you heard or that you read. Better if you read it, because it's more serious. And you are just going to explain this answer to people without saying that it's not your answer, it's something that you read. If you see what I mean there is something like what you call the politically correct, and if it's a problem, if it ever was a problem, it's because then people feel that they have to say this or that because this is okay and this is not okay.
Yeah.
So in the end, they just speak. Speaking is not thinking, and it's not because you speak that you have an idea. So I'm thinking about something right now. And trolling for me is sometimes you're in a debate with some people in real life or whatever, real life or not real life. It's real word and it's a real discussion. And you have this guy, he's talking about something, he's just judging it from his, I don't know, it can be from his social position, social position, or from a place. When you judge something, you give yourself a place from where you judge, and you never want other people to doubt about this place. And this is what I often do, like you talk politics to me and you give me and you say something, I'm going to ask you where did you get this information, why do you say that, oh really, that's interesting, did you get it in the news or did you find it yourself? And you start like this, people get really mad really quick because what they want is not to, I don't know, they don't use the language the way it can be used, construct something. They use the language just, I don't know, sometimes maybe we use it just to fill the space or to have a social conversation with people, but whatever, no matter the content, I don't know. It's something I wonder, really. Since I'm just going to finish on that, but since I have no more TV, it's going to be now maybe 10 years, no more TV. I don't listen to radios, medias. They can be called private or public services. I don't care. They all share the same values to me. When you stop doing that, suddenly you realize you have no answers on certain questions. And maybe if you had to have an answer, you'd start thinking about it or reading many things about it, instead of just saying what you heard last night on TV that everybody's going to repeat the day after at work, just because they all look at the same shit on TV.
Yeah.
That's something I see in the problem of educating people, getting out of this, being cynical, trying to think, trying to talk, getting deeper in the interpretation of art or whatever.
Yeah, there's a lot there, which I really appreciate. When you mentioned the, as far as why do we speak, is it to fill up space? I think a lot of times the words that we use and the language that we use is about showing allegiance. So I kind of take it almost as a form of really just kind of tribalism. So the language that we adopt.
Oh yeah. Exactly. Sometimes yes. You remind me of something I had a few weeks ago. I was at a dinner with some guys, and I don't know if you've heard in France we have these protesters right now. They have yellow jackets on them, and they go outside.
Yeah,
you've heard about that?
Yeah, the yellow jackets. Yeah,
they show them in the whole world to see how violent we are. It's not violent in reality. If you go out and you walk with them, you'll see it's pretty peaceful. Whatever, that's not the point. When you talk about this is the topic right now, the hot topic right now. Every dinner, every time you see someone, you can launch the discussion. Oh, what do you think about the yellow jackets? And you can go on for hours. I was at the dinner and the guy starts, did you know they have 43 propositions about, I don't know what, politics, blah, blah, blah. Do you know that? And I was like, I was already hearing, that he was repeating something. So I started to ask him, did you count the propositions? And then I go, because you have 43 propositions, then it's less interesting, but you have to say. And the guy couldn't answer. And suddenly he said, no, but I read that in that newspaper. So I just asked him, so why do you repeat the newspaper? If then when I ask you, you just hide behind the newspaper. If you don't want to say something, just don't say. Or say, I read in the newspaper that they have 42 43 propositions, and that's doubtful, for example,
Yeah, because facts can be twisted, and you can create a narrative around almost any fact. So, and I think that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand is when you read the newspaper, you get one side of the story. It's not that it's not necessarily accurate. It can use factual information, but it's pretty easy to twist statistics and facts to kind of form a certain perspective, and one that's desirable depending on what side you want to be on.
Yes, but also I think as citizens, we should have this duty to, when we say something, when we express an idea, to first have a little analyze about where it comes from. If I'm talking about politics, what's my position?
Yeah, like a healthy skepticism.
Try to think what's your position, and try to think what's the message of the thing, of this fact you are analyzing, and then try to read something, because if you read the thing, then you have an idea, and then you interpret the thing through the idea of someone else. Then it's not going to be a genuine idea. Even if your idea at the beginning is wrong, at least you start from something that you had in mind. It's like in science, you make a hypothesis about something, and then you try to see if it's true.
Yeah.
You don't do the contrary, like you get the answer from someone else, which is his conclusion, and then you try to see if he's right. It's not the same,
Yeah,
because
most people
you're
don't
not
work
him.
that
You
way.
don't. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, most people I don't think they really want to genuinely challenge their beliefs. I think that's one of the things that philosophy, I can say, has helped me with, is whenever I will believe something or hold something dearly, the first thing I usually do then is try and find the best argument against what I stand for. And I know there's how there's the straw man arguments. Well, it's basically trying to find the strong man argument against whatever position you hold. And that's something that I realize as I get older, people don't really do that at all. They don't usually try to find the best argument against what it is that they want to believe.
What I do is I try to take the contrary of what I think, and spread it for 1 minute. I'm like, okay, I think this is the truth. What if it was the total contrary?
Yeah.
And sometimes you get things you can't say they're wrong too. So you have to deal with those conclusions too, and you have to make a new truth. But this is something, when you study philosophy, at least in Europe, I know that, you have dialectic and the way of thinking that the way we make, we write essays in poetry here, in philosophy here in France. It's really specific. You have to do exactly what we're talking about. It's like you have a question, you have to imagine what can be a discussion on the question, and you have to be the advocate of both sides.
Mm-hmm.
And you can't sometimes one side is totally wrong, and sometimes the other one is totally true. But in many situations, it's more in gray areas, and you have to keep one element from one side and another from another, and then you're going to build another truth about it,
Yeah.
Something that's on a higher level, that keeps the good in the two answers and rejects some things and define a new concept. That's the answer in philosophy. And this is not what we do when we talk. Actually, no, we want to be right. And there is also the ego, and there are many questions about why we don't like to be wrong or to change our mind. But
yeah, those gray areas, we don't like those gray areas, though.
No, because you don't have a satisfying answer.
Yeah.
You don't have the answer right away. And but also there is something, and really we are in the topic from the beginning, not about the dogs anymore, but maybe about the public and the publicity, the fact that we show what we do online.
Mm-hmm.
The question is, it's always going around the same elements here, I guess. I see something. It's also, there is a problem in people's beliefs. There are some beliefs that they don't criticize, and some others that they do criticize, and sometimes you just wonder why.
Yeah.
Why are you critics on this and not on this? This is something I always wonder. There is this sentence about, I don't know who said that. That's the kind of sentence you find on Twitter, but you never remember the guy who said it. It's it's a scientist. He says, you paint a wall and you write on a post-it on the wall, you write, "Don't touch fresh paint," and everybody's gonna touch and get wet and get stained. And you say there is someone in the sky, above the clouds. He knows everything about your lives. He can do good, evil. He can do everything, and nobody doubts it. Everybody's like, "Oh yeah, oh that's interesting." That's something weird.
Yeah, definitely. It's most people aren't willing to question those fundamental beliefs, and I think it goes back to, it would undermine a lot of the foundation of the individual. So for example, a belief in God. If you believe in God and have been raised that way, and all of a sudden you kind of pull that out from underneath yourself, it really makes you start questioning a lot more than what you want to actually face.
Exactly. And I have no problem with people believing in God. I mean, I don't believe in God, let's be clear. I question myself about how people believe in God, and if I do believe, and everything. It's a question, it's a personal question. The answer is pretty much no. But when I look at the way people believe and the way they argue about it, I'm not satisfied. It's, for instance, what you said before. You are raised in a family where people believe in God, and this is your education, and mainly that's the way you get to religion, through family. Generally, you can be at one point in your life where you try to think, and you're like, okay, so my path to religion was my family. It's not really a choice. You can think about it. It's not a big deal. And the conclusion of your discussion is that you can still want to go to church. You can say, I go to church because I like it, and it's part of it gives me, I don't know, a balance. Whatever is your need, and whatever needs it fulfill for you, good for you. But why don't you take it as it is, without pretending that you have answers about big questions? You can say, I culturally go to church, for example. Or you could believe in God and say, I can't explain why, but I do believe. That in many occasions would be more noble to me than your fake explanations about the origin of the world and physics and many things that can't stand, 5 minutes of reflection. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
it's
absolutely.
It's okay. Believe in it if you want to believe in it, but try to know why and how you do believe in it.
Yeah, and you have to be willing to defend it against, I think, people who genuinely question it, I think.
Yeah.
And that takes a lot of time and energy that I don't.
And most of people who believe, and if you ask them questions about their beliefs, they're not really at their ease, and because they don't really know how to stop, how to say yes, how to say no. They don't know what position they should take.
Yeah, and
for instance, if you say to people, "Oh, you believe in God, so you believe there is someone who created the world in 7 days," for instance, they're going to be annoyed already. Oh, I don't have to explain this, blah. You're like, okay, so how do you believe? Tell me.
Yeah, how do you make sense of that?
And they can't answer it neither. So if you have no answer, but you are absolutely sure of something that's important to you, then you're dumb. It's like, you just take what they give you, or at least say, I'm dumb, I just take it as it is.
Yeah.
We've always done that. Some people can say that. Oh, it's always been like this. Yeah.
Yeah, and obviously, there we all have an element of that, so, but I can't help but think that some of these most important questions, a lot of people seem to want to steer very clear of them. I think that can be kind of frustrating. But
Yes.
was your family kind of philosophical like you? Did you kind of grow up in that environment, or?
Actually, on one of the sides, they are Jews, but they go to they are, but how can you say? Do they really believe? I don't know. I've never had the discussion with them, but they go to the synagogue and they have all the rules that they respect.
They practice
But yeah, they
Judaism.
practice. Yes, but I've never had a theological conversation with my grandmother or my grandfather about it. All I know is that they respect the things, they do all the celebrations and everything.
Mm-hmm.
On the other side, they are Christian from Italy, and my grandmother was she was actually teaching religion to kids. You can do that in your neighborhood, in your village.
Mm-hmm.
You have this person, she's at church and she's just, passing the.
Like almost like a Sunday school
Exactly.
teacher. Yeah.
Yeah. So my grandmother was doing that. She was really involved in the church of her village. But my parents, being my one being Jew and the other one Christian, and not really believing but practicing sometimes because they had to, they decided they wouldn't choose for me. They would tell me that it's a personal choice that you make, and if you want to make it, you can, but you have different origins and there are differences. So think about it, and you don't have to choose neither. You can say, I don't want to choose. That was something I think I'm lucky about that, because it put me in a situation to think about the questions right away and very young. Because you're like, okay, so what do they do? What's the differences? What's common? What's interesting? It put me in the reflection pretty soon.
So these questions then started before you went to university. And
oh yeah,
and were you able to have this kind of back and forth with anyone in particular before you went to school, or was it really just kind of you exploring these topics on your own?
I remember talking about it with my father, for example, because he was on the Jew side, but he wasn't believing, but he was practicing and saying, I don't believe, but I practice because it's a family thing. We gather and I like the social side of the thing. Okay. So I had conversations about him about, actually, if you want to talk about religion, you have to talk about the proofs of the existence of God. You have to have this conversation that they had in philosophy for centuries and centuries. You have to get through some of the answers that were given, maybe read some books and try to think of the question how it was in history,
Yeah.
how different people, different periods answered. So yes, some talks are with my father. Also school always has been a place, because if you start reading novels, novelists, some are really philosophers, because the way the stories they tell and the beliefs they give to the characters.
Yeah. Camus
Like
is always one of my favorites.
Yeah. Which one?
Camus.
Oh yeah, that's
Yeah.
not my favorite, but yeah.
Yeah,
Definitely.
I always loved him.
And I remember pretty well my first clear conversation about this was when I entered. The first year you study philosophy in France, it's at the last year of high school. You don't start before. Before, you have literature, you can read novels, you study letters, but you don't study philosophy. And when you start the last year, the year you pass the baccalaureate, our exam to go to university after, that year you start philosophy. And the first book I was asked to read was Cartesio, Descartes.
Yeah.
So in French is le discours de la méthode. I don't know how it's translated.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure. But yeah, I mean, I'm not. I know of Descartes, obviously, but I wouldn't be able to rattle off his books.
It's a book that deals with these questions in a very somehow candid way. The going to the cogito ergo sum and all of this process. I think it is it reflects pretty well a process that any kid can go through. What to believe, why, when. So the name of the book is The Discourse on Method.
Okay, yeah.
You've read it?
No? Yeah, I've read parts of it. I think I have it. I have it here somewhere. It's been a while since I've picked it up though. But yeah, I mean,
it's a discourse on method. Method meaning how to behave. What should you do in some situations and why? So it's about morals and about behavior and about what's good, what's wrong, and of course about what to believe and what not. What can we believe? The cogito ergo sum is the answer to all the doubts. I doubt about everything, and if it was a level that made me believe in things, and there are many ideas like this, and then you come to the point that you doubt, so you're pretty sure you're thinking.
Yeah, I think therefore I am.
So, yeah, this was to answer your question. This was the first huge conversation, but it was with a book. But when you read a philosophy book, it's a conversation. That's why Plato only wrote dialogue.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the interesting things too about philosophy is so much of it, especially because of Plato, revolves around dialogue, which dialogue can't establish facts. It really is about essentially trying to basically see if your rational thinking is clear enough. It's really about clarity of thought. And
yes, exactly. And Socrates can be considered as the first troll of history. I'm not really kind on finding the first this, the first that, but Socrates definitely was the guy that was really annoying that you would find on your road. Because the troll, that's what it is. It's that little creature you find in the middle of the woods at night. Yep. And he starts bothering you and following you everywhere, and you don't know if he wants you good or evil. And Socrates was like this, for many people. He was just annoying. He was there asking questions and never was satisfied about the answer because he had another answer from someone else that wouldn't match your answer. And
yeah. People would get a little tired of him sometimes, and
when he asks what's courage to a general, and he gets the answer, and he's like, "Oh, that's funny because I asked the cook and he told me." Yeah, and that's trolling, but it would be even more trolling today if you think about it. Today, one of the problems, and it's going to go in that discussion, even if at the beginning it looks I'm going to go a little bit far. It's that if you think about someone having the attitude of Socrates right now that would speak in the media, it's impossible.
Oh, yeah.
We live in a world where this free speech and this free possibility of asking questions to people that should answer the questions, like politics, like all people that you said that are responsible for something, then we can never ask them anything. The dialogue is always fake. TV is just a way of faking dialogue. Medias is always a way of faking dialogues. You can't say anything because then they won't get the ads from the advertisement. They won't get the money from the support that they have in private companies, and so you can't say anything.
Yeah,
Basically.
everyone's basically handcuffed.
You can't turn on your TV and hope to have an answer, because already it's never going to be the right question. And this is the lesson of Socrates. It's always that, oh, you're satisfied with this poor way of seeing the thing, not me. I don't have an answer. This is why he's boring. He says to people, I don't have an answer, but I'm pretty sure from what you said that is bullshit. Mainly,
Yeah. Yeah, because there's always the flip side of the story, and yeah.
And also because truth is something that you build. It's not an easy answer, at least to him, or at least on certain topics. And that people, they don't want to go through the process and wait and have an answer after. They want to have, they have to answer.
Yeah. Well, it's difficult living in that. It's a precarious situation when you don't have an answer, because I think so much of our minds operate in the black and white. We just want that clarity to be able to say yes or no and act. I think it really kind of comes down to wanting to act emotionally towards things on intuition. So we think in these binary terms so that we can emotionally respond as opposed to being thoughtful about it. So that's my take on it anyway. I could be totally wrong.
No. That I think that is something also that deals with education, because you are raised to answer when you're asked something, and answer doesn't mean, oh, you can't answer. I have no answer. I don't know. You should know. If they asked it, that you should know. And about God and religion, I remember a day in my life that was revolutionary. It's the day I discovered a word. I'm going to look for it online before I lose time. Agnostic.
Yeah.
Agnostic.
Yeah.
It's another position. It's like, okay, you doubt, you have questions, and what if you could say, I don't have the answer.
Yeah.
Being agnostic, that's the answer is, I don't know, or there are different ways of thinking, and I'm interested in many. Or maybe the question is too big for me.
Yeah,
like this.
That's where I stand personally. That's how I identify as agnostic, because I genuinely don't know. I really, and that's as honest as I can be. And it's, the concept of God is something that I think quite a bit about, especially being raised in a Catholic house, and but I just genuinely don't know. I mean, at one point I was atheist, but at one point I was also Catholic. So, but yeah. I don't know. That's the best answer I've been able to come up with.
That's also something interesting to me, is that what you just said, you gave 3 possibilities, and you said usually we're too binary, black or white. Usually we're even binary means we choose one, but we don't even keep 2, and we don't accept to say it could be a mix of 3. Yeah, maybe it's a mix of 3. Why not?
Or it's or the concept of God, even the one that we're raised with so much of the time, whether it comes from a Judeo-Christian background, maybe God doesn't exist like that in any way. Maybe he's sort of, what they refer to as like Spinoza's God. It's just kind of this indifferent being that isn't really part of our lives at all. And that's a possibility too.
This is somewhere I was going to go. Because I have no answer about the question, but I have answers about some ways of believing that I think are total bullshit. And this is where I think this is a point where I start to be annoying to people. It's when I can affirm with a certain certitude that some ways of believing and some actions and what's called religion, it's not interesting, it's dangerous, So in my reflection about religion, I end up making a separation a little bit binary, maybe, with some facts in the history of religion that you can definitely say it was dangerous. Religion has been a pretext for war. Religion is today a pretext for rejecting people. Religion is in contradiction with itself when you look at people. They go to church and they pray that they should respect, anybody who comes to them, and then they reject anything that's different, because it doesn't have the same color, because it doesn't speak the same language. Uh, this is a reality in religion and in believers. You have lots of believers that are totally not tolerant when the discourse of the religion is tolerance. This is a fact. You can't ignore it. They gather, and sometimes there are violence. There is a violence. This is all the side of the religion that I totally disrespect and judge. And as you said before, there is Spinoza. There is also Pascal, Blaise Pascal.
Yeah, Pascal's wager.
Yeah, the guy, he invented the calculator. He's known as one of the most important mathematicians of his age. And the guy says, mathematics, you shouldn't waste your time on that.
Well, that's good, because I'm not very good at mathematics. So,
but he's the best at it, and he says, "Oh, it's a waste of time." It's actually it's a comment about Cartesio. He says Cartesio, too much time wasted on mathematics, because for him there is a higher truth, but you can't really explain it with mathematics, reasoning. So I think this is interesting. Try to see what belief is for what it is really. A pure belief, a supposition, a strength, a voice, a feeling, a meaning, a direction, something you can't really explain. So if you say you can't really explain it, why would you take it to a lower level and start explaining? Try to put reasoning in something where maybe there is none. And in the end, I think it's more noble to say, I believe and I can't explain, because I feel something. It's on the side of the feeling of my heart and not on the side of the calculations of my brain. This is something I accept, and I think it's interesting.
Yeah, being able to, people just claim that it's simply just faith.
Yeah, and also, if I had to believe in something, I wouldn't accept the theories that explain rationally the creation of the world. I wouldn't believe this. The religion thoughts, the religion way of explaining things in a rational way. Rational being used ironically here.
Yeah.
This is, if you tell me there is a creator and he built things, this is not okay. It's not satisfying for my brain. If you tell me it's love, it's something that looks like love to me, it starts to be more interesting. Explain me that love. Show me, what it makes you do and how you act and what person you are. And let the science take the rest,
Yeah. Try not to intermingle the two too much.
Yeah, exactly. But it doesn't mean that one that you can't be rational on a way and believe on another. Just like Pascal, his figure is really interesting. Or Spinoza, it's the same,
Yeah, there has to be a certain consistency, with beliefs. Even if, say, for example, believing in God, you mentioned love, there has to be consistency with even a definition of love. So, as you mentioned, religion and violence and bigotry and hatred, it doesn't correspond with any kind of real definition of love at all. So that's where I think it has to be rational.
And for instance, let's go back to my personal life. I told you my grandmother was teaching religion at home, kind of Sunday school. Well, she was somehow a bigot. She was believing and she couldn't explain, and she would repeat what she heard and everything. That was the bad side of her side, let's say. This was not. This is something that she was too, And if you started talking to her about and arguing about the facts, she couldn't hold it for long. But in the other hand, she was someone really nice, and really she was turned to the others, helping. She was giving, she was putting energy to help the others accept some people. And this is something, if it makes you do that, and if you have love in you and you go to the others, well, good for you. Call it religion if you want, call it belief, call it God, call it whatever. Sometimes I think God is a word that we all use, but we all have another definition, and this is also what works.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with that. And so now we're obviously getting very philosophical and talking about your background in philosophy. At what point did photography enter the scene?
I had two experiences as a kid that were that made me discover the photography. One was it was nearly at the same age. I don't really remember which one was first. Maybe the first one was this one. I was on a holidays, was something like 10, and my mother brought a camera that I still have, a little automatic Canon point and shoot. And I remember she told me, "Oh, I'm sick of taking pictures. Why don't you take pictures?"
What year was this?
Oh, I was 10 in 88.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 40.
I'm not too far off. I'm actually my 36th birthday is coming up here next week. So yeah,
I go on 41st.
Nice. Yeah, no, I just think it's interesting because I think, the time period, obviously, from which we're all from, it impacts us. So, for example, if you growing up with the internet is going to make you quite a bit different than being, having to, watch TV or read books or it's just a different experience. So that's why I ask. It's
it's interesting because it's true. If you start photography with a digital camera, it's not the same as if you started with a dark room.
Exactly.
You have a totally. And so the first experience was just my mother saying, "Oh, I'm sick of taking pictures. Why don't you do it?" And I remember pretty well. I have this image in my mind. We were on an island in France. And I had some rocks in front of me, the ocean behind, and some tiny islands, rock islands, small things like this. And I remember suddenly I put my eye in the viewfinder, and I'm like, why should I put the rocks here? Why should I put the island there? How much sky do I want? How much ocean? I'm like, wow, this is interesting. I suddenly, I felt right away that these were the choices, that the possibilities were infinite, and that you could express yourself through that. I didn't say it to myself like the first thing I really thought the possibilities are infinite. That's for sure. And then I thought it must be fun to try them all. And try to see the results and compare what kind of picture do I get if I put I don't know, half of sky, half of sea, the rocks, no rocks, a boat, no boat. What kind of image do you get? That was the first experience. And the second one, I must was 12, something like this. I was on a camp, day camp. You go on holiday, you go in the morning and you go back at night, and you play with kids and you do activities. And one day there was a photographer, and we would spend one day with him. Not a lot of kids wanted to do this activity. They prefer playing, soccer, volleyball, go to the swimming pool. I said, okay, it's interesting. Let's do photography. And with this guy, in one day, we took pictures. I actually have two in front of me right now on my wall. and we took 2 pictures. But we learned everything about time, aperture, ISOs, and framing, angles. And we took pictures, and then we developed the film ourselves, and then we made the print in the dark room ourselves, all in one day.
That's really cool.
Oh yeah, that was something. Really, that was something. That day I realized this is really something. I feel good doing it. I'm like, it's interesting. I feel good in this dark room. It's interesting, the process, the chemicals, the result, everything.
So then, at what point did you just kind of delve into it? Then,
when I was also my father had a dark room at my place when I was a baby. Then he had it. He didn't have it anymore, but he still had some cameras. And when I was a teenager, he gave me one. And I remember that we were taking photos with friends, but that was not something really. I was starting to play with it, but not regularly. I started at the end of must be 16, 17. Then I remember, I should take more pictures, do more things with this. And it really started after high school.
That's when it became kind of a passion?
When I was at university, I took a class, a night class, because I was studying philosophy, but I registered to a class in a art school, public art school, and you would pay to have a night class. And it was also studio photo, first nudes, and developing the films and printing in the darkroom. We would do everything.
So would you say that's kind of where it all began then, is taking the college course at night?
Yeah, that was a period where I made a lot of photos. And I remember I started with my girlfriend maybe to shoot our intimacy or make portrait of her when she was not fully dressed, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And I kept doing that as long as I was studying in philosophy, and there was no internet, no pretension to show anything to anybody. And then I quit. I stopped because I was studying to get a job, become a teacher. So I stopped and I focused on studying. And when I started being a teacher, I didn't do photography anymore. And then I became a father.
Congratulations.
Yeah, that was in 2006.
Okay.
And what's fun is that the period where I stopped is pretty much the period where the digital was coming,
mm-hmm.
and slowly coming, and the analog was quickly dying or slowly dying. So at the same time I stopped, which means when I stopped in analog, and when I got back to it, it was right the point where you could buy a digital reflex for an affordable price that wouldn't do something too low quality. Because at that time, if you'd buy the first price reflex, you'd have nothing. So my first one was the Nikon D70S.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, started to be okay for the price.
Yeah.
So that was fun because when I got back on photography, it was changed.
Yeah.
It was not film anymore. So I started again with digital because I had a kid. And when you have a kid, you're like, I need photos of my kid. Having a kid is one of the first things that make you buy a camera. I mean, I'm pretty sure people that work in this market know it pretty well. And so you're like, okay, so let's buy a reflex because reflex is better, and now I can afford one. And so I started with that. And a few years after, I realized that digital isn't really photography. And so I got back to analog and had more fun with it, more pleasure, and more interesting experiences.
Yeah, that's interesting that you say that digital isn't really photography. it's kind of a weird thing because when I first started shooting, I can kind of relate in that's what I started shooting was film, and that's what I got into, and developed my own film, and it's obviously it's a really beautiful medium. And then it got to a certain point where I kind of started shooting digital quite a bit later, and I got a digital camera to be able to just afford to kind of shoot more. And
yes, exactly. You do it for economical reasons too.
yeah,
It's so. How can you not say the sentence? It's so convenient.
yeah, it is. It's very convenient, and I thought my understanding or my knowledge of shooting film would translate over really nicely into shooting digital, and I was sorely disappointed. It really is a totally different medium, and I think
Yes.
that it has there's a beauty in it in and of itself, but they're not really related, other than just the fact that the final process can look similar. It's a photograph, but I kind of think of them
Yeah,
as
and
two
also the
different things.
the camera really looks like the one you used before.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, it's interesting that you say that because I really feel like they're really two different mediums in my mind. Digital.
Oh, for me too. For me, it's clear in my mind. It's this is a reflection that I think I have answers now. Maybe I'll change my mind later, but for me, for now, okay, digital is photography because it writes light or it writes with light. So photography is the meaning is respected,
Mm-hmm.
but for many reasons, technically, you don't create the same object with the same process, and the camera looks like the old one, but instead of the the lens, except the lens. Sorry for my bad English. Except for the lens, what happens behind the lens, it's totally different. Okay, it has the same size. There is a mirror. It looks like it, but it's called ISO, but it's not really ISO. It's something different.
Yeah.
For example, and what you get is a series of number understandable by a machine. It's a language, that's created from a sensor, from a perception of reality by a machine that creates a language that's not physical. It's a series of number. It's called digital because it's a series of number. It's 1 and 0 and 0 and 1. It's a code. If you can recreate the code by writing it, you will get the same picture. I mean, if you could write a code with I don't know the definition of all the pixels and where they stand and the color and everything, you will write the same picture. When in photography, in analog, you can't do that because it's a product that's on the paper and it's a physical reaction to light. It's chemistry. It's real. It's physical. It has another nature.
Now, on your Instagram, you say that you shoot both digital
sorry,
and
just
film.
one thing. Just
sorry.
one thing.
Oh, sorry about that.
I interrupt you, but just one thing. When we say
you can interrupt
digital,
me whenever.
I know, but because I thought about that before. But when you say, and we all say it, digital is convenient. Yeah, right. You have to have a computer, internet connection, a camera,
the software. Yeah.
a software.
Yeah.
You have to get all of that.
Yeah.
It's not when you say convenient. I think Polaroid is convenient.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to buy a screen, a computer, a software, and you will get an image that's actually a photograph, and it's already printed in front of you. And when you show this to kids, it looks like magical to them today. That's
true.
interesting. The new generation, they look at old stuff that should be easier to understand because logically they are from an older period. They look magical to them when something coming from a computer looks totally natural to them.
Yeah, it's interesting that shift between the digital and the organic, how much that's shifted in such a short period of time. Do you prefer then analog over shooting digital?
Oh yeah, no, definitely analog. No hesitation.
So
But you know, I have a lingerie shop in Paris, and I shoot all the products we sell. We shoot them, and it's true that if I do a product picture, like just the product, I'm going to use the digital because there is no meaning in wasting film and scanning, and it's going to be you have to wait a long time to get the results. So for that kind of use, digital for sure, but it's not the way I express myself.
So you really use digital as for kind of more pragmatic or practical applications, and then with analog, that's kind of where you really connect.
And even if you do just use it like this, you realize also that when you shoot digital, the picture is not made when you shoot it, and you always have to add something more after to finish it. That's the main problem for me with digital. I don't say I don't edit my analog pictures, but they already have a character or some direction that I'm going to accentuate or that I'm going to balance in a way. When I shoot digital, what I get is a result that I have to work on after.
Yeah.
If you do digital, you have to go on post-production. I hate post-production, you know. I hate doing that. It's not because this is the work of a graphic designer, and this is perfect for digital photography because you can change everything, because in the end there is just a sentence of code and numbers that you can interact with, and it's really interesting too. But it's graphic design to me.
Yeah, that's essentially my mentality as well. When I shoot film, and I really don't do it as much anymore, unfortunately. But when I shoot film, I don't edit anything. But my mentality with digital is that when I shoot something on digital, that's just the beginning. I'm spending a ton of time in post process.
Yes, and also I have to think, I'm going to go in that direction. In digital, for example, I have my directions that I always choose. In some context, I will go underexposure, overexposure, because I know that after, when I will be on my computer, I will start working on a direction that's interesting to me because I shot. It's an example. I shoot with a lot of ISOs, and I close a lot, for instance. It's a choice. And then I'm underexposed for the whole set. But it's a choice at the beginning, so that after I have to start with that.
So
because if I try to get, to give me a direction.
Yeah, those creative even limitations, it's intentional from the very beginning.
Yes, because but if I do it with digital, it's because if I don't do it, what I get is a neutral image, standard image, something. Because in art, or not even in art, let's not even pretend we're talking about art. When you make a picture, there is a notion that you don't have in painting, for example. That's, I think, it's unique to photography, or maybe to music. It's to be right, the right picture. Sometimes you say, oh, this picture is right, when this one on the side who looks alike, it's not right,
Yeah.
And you don't really know why. There is something right. Maybe it's a balance between things. Maybe it's the light that's more interesting, the way you have it in the first image. The rightness of things, in photography, it's something that when you do digital, you'll try to get the right picture. And this right picture, it's pretty much standard. It looks like all the other digital pictures. It has no style, no direction, no character. And I exaggerate a little bit, but when you take analog, if you choose to shoot black and white, you can't get back to colors after. Or you can if you paint the picture, but I mean, once you're in black and white, you're in black and white.
Yeah, that's
in
it.
Digital, you can always change your mind. Always. You can go back to the beginning of the process, erase everything you've done, and start again. This is for me, it's sign of anxiety. It's too much. There's too much you can do.
Yeah, it becomes overwhelming.
Yes, and also I have no idea because I'm not a painter. If you gave me a pencil and I am a drawer, and you gave me a white sheet, I already see things, and I'm going to project these things with my hand on the paper.
Yeah,
this is not a habit I have because I don't draw. I mean, I do, but I'm not good at it. But I do it for a hobby like this. But when I take a photograph, it's different because when you give me the camera and I put my eye in the viewer, I suddenly see things and go in a direction to express them. Well, I see it less when I take the digital than when I take the analog. I'm less in that attitude when I take a digital camera.
Yeah, because you know that there's always that possibility to just keep reinterpreting and reinterpreting.
Yeah, because I'm going to make 100 photos instead of 10. And you know this. You know it. If you are a photographer, when you talk to photographers, they all know it's a problem. There is this little drawing that you can see on internet. There is a drawing where you see, the old film, the rolls, the 120. You could shoot 12 pictures with it, and you would make 6 that were good. Then you had the 36 pose. You would still make 6 good photos. Yeah. Now you have an SD card where you can make 1 million photos, and still in the end you're going to keep 6.
Yeah, that's true.
But with the digital, you're going to spend weeks wondering which one. Well, it doesn't satisfy myself.
Yeah, that's something that over the years I've realized, just trying to streamline the process to where it's a huge time waster. So trying to, one of the things on your website I was going to mention before, it kind of summarizes it, where you said, I try to make the photos when I shoot it, not afterwards.
Yes.
That kind of speaks to that. It's I think just about intent and knowing what it is you're doing and having that vision. It takes a lot of discipline. And so
it's a different approach. It's like I used to because there is this word post-process. I kind of invented the one pre-process. Because when you shoot analog, you're going to pick up a camera that has a format or limitations or possibilities. It's the same. It's just another way to say something. And you're going to pick up a film, and this film, it has ISOs, and you won't be able to change them after. You can play with them. You can push the button and try to do something, an experiment, but you won't be able to go back. If you made a mistake, it's going to be a mistake, and it's going to stay a mistake. If you have a happy accident, it's going to be a happy accident. Then you're going to try to learn how to do it again. So it's a different approach.
Yeah.
And this is the pre-process, because you pick up a film, you pick up a camera, you choose daylight, not daylight. It's the same. It's like building the studio. The film is part of the light. It's part of the atmosphere. It's part of the direction. All the films are different. And before, because we had more choices and a better industry, we had more choices of directions because of the grain, because of the darkness, because of all the properties of the films and the cameras.
Yeah, you have to know all of that going in.
Yeah, or you can just try. Sometimes you just buy a film and you try it and you see if it fits or not.
Yeah, I have plenty of rules that show me trying. So then, when did nudity then become such a focus in your photography?
As I told you, I think I've made the first nudes with one of my girlfriends when I was around 20, for our pleasure, and it was really intimate. Then I started the photos at this class I would take at night in an art school. And we were making nudes. But when you go to an art school and you take nude photographs, you're not supposed to go in the sensual direction or erotic direction.
Yeah.
Then there is the question, what are you supposed to do then? Okay, it's interesting.
So it's just like
I think there is a lot of a lot of things to say about that. Yeah, bodyscapes. I don't know. Let's let's keep that for later. But I don't know. So I started doing nudes there, and the first that's funny. The first were with a man, a redhead man. I remember it. I was very comfortable because it was a man. I was more anxious after with the girls because of the respect you show them when you look at them. This is also something I felt right away. Really easy with a man, but with the woman there is already something weird because of her position in the society and the way we look at her. There is something. So, well, we started these nudes, and I remember one time at the very first lessons, I shot some photos, and the process that every week we would share our results with the other students. We would put all the pictures on the table, and the teacher, a very nice guy, he was saying, okay, so my idea is to take everything that you made that's the same, everything that everybody could make, we're going to throw away. We're not going to keep that. It's not interesting because everybody did it. He didn't say it's good, it's not good. It said, you all did that, it's not interesting. Let's keep all the rest. Yes. And let's keep all the rest and look through the rest. And I remember pretty well having remarks from the others that my photos were erotic when theirs were not. And I didn't realize it when I shot. But then I understood when I looked at the others and mine. And then I remember that I kept in my head, one day I would like to do something that goes in that direction. It won't be in that class, obviously, because this is not what you do in an art class at night.
Yeah.
Strangers. But I kept it in my head like this, like this is something like a lead I would like to explore, go through this path one day, maybe. And then little by little, it happened. I can explain how, but if it's a question for you. But the main answer was, yeah, this is how it started with this class and the nudes and the difference that they asked me to do or they made me do between a nude that's just a nude and one that has a sexual tension or sensuality, call it how you want.
Now, with that class, you said that you saw that yours had maybe an erotic or a sexual element to them because of the contrast with others. Can you explain what it was that you saw there?
Oh yeah, I remember we shot, it was in Strasbourg, in France. It's near Germany. I was there when I was studying philosophy at the beginning. And the teacher was Xavier Chevalier, actually. He was also an artist and had some exhibitions. I've looked sometimes, I don't know what he's doing now. He was also a singer in a grindcore band. Yeah.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, that was a nice association of things. Photography teacher at the art school where he was a student, actually. Young father and singer in a grindcore band. He had a long beard and long hair. So I remember that my photo was, we shot in the Roman bath of Strasbourg, and the girl was sitting on top of a little wall, something like this. And I framed it from behind her back, and you could see the beginning of her breast from the side, a little bit under the arm. It was a black and white. It was 3,200 ISOs, a lot of grains, lack of contrast, grain. And you could see the shape of the beginning of the circle, it's called in French the birth of the breast. I don't know if it exists in English, but
I haven't heard that phrase. I would. The way I'm thinking of it, I think of it as side boob, which
side boob
doesn't sound as nice.
Yeah, it's less poetic than birth of the boob. La naissance du sein. There is a book actually by a philosopher called La naissance du sein because it's where it starts. But start is not a nice verb here. And this, yes, this was, it's true that the photo was evoking something else. You wouldn't look at the girl the same way that you would look at the girl in the other pictures that I've made or the other made, because they were more, they had another point of view. So you wouldn't find yourself in the position of the voyeur, maybe.
Do you remember what it was like when you created it? Could you
No,
look at your...
not really. No, I wasn't really realizing I was doing something different.
Mm-hmm.
I was just framing, trying to frame something.
So then, as you progressed in photography and started experimenting, shooting with girlfriends and all of that world kind of started developing, when did shooting nudes become just something that you wanted to commit so much time to?
One day you feel like you have to do something because not you have to do something, but that you really want to do something. You would really like to try. And I guess internet has something to do with it, because at the same time I created my MySpace account and creating this MySpace account to show my photography allowed me to meet girls that really wanted to make pictures too. So this is how I met the first girls that said, "Okay, let's try to do something. You've never done it, but let's try." So that's it. That's how it began. And the more I did it, the more I felt I wanted to explore.
What was it? Do you know specifically why you wanted to explore that?
This will be my answer, because this was the first answer. The first question in your email was, what appeals you and why do you do nude? And this is always the question. Why do you do what you do?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer. I can't say why. I can't say, I could try to develop some kind of political, philosophical discourse about women today in our society. And it's true that there is something that I do in my photography that answers to those questions, I think. But I really think, I don't know why I do or why I really want to include nudity in my works, or sensual tensions, sexual tensions. I think that if I do it, maybe it's to get an answer, but the answer would be, it's like all the pictures are some answers to it. You know what I mean? It's like, it's not I have a word to answer or a sentence or something I could say, but while I'm doing it, I'm answering this question little by little. Yeah. And right now, I know that in what I'm doing, it's really important to me to have a trustful relationship with a model and be clear about what we build together, that the ideas that we put together are okay for everybody, that I don't want to steal images from her because I think it's satisfying to me, but not to her. I have some principles that now I have some ways to do things that are some answers, on why and what I want to say, what I want to show. I don't know if I'm clear.
Well, I think this is the difficulty of the subject matter, and really why I'm asking the question is I don't think there is an incredibly clear answer. And I ask this because, I pose the same question to myself all the time. Like, why am I doing this? What am I doing it for? And I want there to be an honesty that I have with myself, first off. And I really can't, the best way I can answer it for myself is just, I'm trying to figure something out. And I don't really completely know exactly what it is I'm trying to figure out. I know it has something to do with sexuality and its place in our lives, because the way I think of sexuality is that it's very multidimensional, and we usually only think about it in terms of sex, but I think it's present kind of everywhere we go. And so for me, with my photography, I'm kind of asking the question by capturing it, like, where does this have its place? And what are the dimensions that are going on here? And I know I can't answer all of them, And that's why I'm curious, for people who are creating this, how is it that you're seeing it? What is it that you're exploring? And I think kind of we're all exploring it to a degree. And that's not really an answer in and of itself, but I completely, I can empathize with what you're saying.
Yeah.
Because I think it's difficult. So I'm there with you.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's like, if you make a comparison, it's like saying, let's take a philosophical essay, for example, that you have to do in class. They ask you something, but you have 3 hours to answer, and the 3 hours you're going to write is the process to get to an answer. I think when I shoot, it's like the essay you're writing, and you're getting through answers. These answers are going to be the pictures. The general answer is going to be the theory in the end and what it says and what you did. But then you have to do another one, to explore something else and try to get other bits of answers on other things. But I'm sure that one of the goals on why I do it now, but it's not the goal I had at the beginning, but it came after. It's one of the goals is to create something with a model. It looks basic and simple, but it's not, because you have a society of photographers and models and many ways of collaborating together. There are some with money. There are some that has to be professional and published in places, for magazines, for brands, for whatever. It can be commissioned. It can be something that you do with a model because you want to create only for yourself. It's a different approach, and it's going to go in a different direction. What I do is, it's always free of any pressure to satisfy someone who would buy the picture or someone who would have made a commission.
Yeah, that's a difficult position to be in, especially you.
It's.
Well, I was going to say, you mentioned earlier that you don't have a TV, and I think it very much is about trying not to have those outside influences. So trying to maintain that slight level of autonomy or agency is really hard to do, to not have that outside pressure on you and to react to kind of a demand of, let's say, for example, like Instagram. Like, when you post a particular picture, it's going to get a certain reaction. It's difficult not to make photos for that environment. Because I think that ultimately,
it's difficult. Try to not become the product that people want to click on like for. If you start to do this, then you just become a product that people want. Then you're just a supermarket. Like, what's the demand? I'll supply.
It goes back to that superficiality.
I don't think artists. I go back to the superficiality, or I go back to a capitalistic system where you're supposed to sell, buy, and create. What you create is not the picture. What you create is the money with the picture. Me, when I create a picture, it's for the picture. The goal of the picture is the picture. Okay, it's not true, because then I have a Patreon and I try to get money from it. Okay, but it's not I sell you something. It's more support my work. It's different.
Yeah.
But you know what I mean? When I mean, if you're a photographer and you get into a magazine, they're going to ask you to shoot in a direction that's their direction.
Mm-hmm.
There is an artistic director. He wants some direction. When I do what I do, that you see on Instagram or on my website, you just try to find someone that has the intention of creating for creating, just for the result of it. And the main goal is that when I send the pictures to the model and she's happy and I'm happy and we spend a good time together and we have the will to do it again, then the mission is accomplished.
Do you find that to be the biggest hurdle then? in your work?
Yes, it's a good reward.
How do you maintain that discipline to stay on your path? I assume you've probably made mistakes along it.
Oh yes, of course, of course.
How do you find that? I guess, what does that process look like for you over the years to be able to go back to that genuine place of creating what it is you do?
Well, the mistakes you make is when you do things knowing that you do them because they are going to be liked by someone else. This is a mistake for me. And sometimes you use sexiness to do that. That's your weapon. You do a sexy picture when you could have done something different, less sexy, more interesting. And then you're guilty because you are the superficial guy.
Yeah.
You are supplying superficiality. But sometimes it's also okay to entertain, It's not. This is what is interesting about photography too. Photography can be so many different things. You can be a wedding photographer, you can be a product photographer, you can be a reporter, you can do nude in your apartment with some unknown women, you can make portrait for a magazine with film directors, actors. It's so different. The activity of photography is so different, and so there are many differences that you could have many different answers, I guess, about why you do it. I already see a difference where I do it for my lingerie shop, and when I do it for myself, it's different.
No.
Even if I decide what I do and I decide my own directions, I still do it for a shop. So
yeah,
there
the
are
ends
some
is
things
different.
I don't allow myself.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. It's serving a different role.
Yeah.
Now, maybe a just as relevant of a question to asking why you work with nudity is to also ask if you think that nude art is important.
Oh, interesting. First of all, I don't necessarily really work with nudity in the way that, and this is also something I adjusted in my position, because what's important to me is sensuality, and to go to that result, I don't have to have a full nude or even nudity. What I look for now, it's important because it's also something that I can say right away to a model that proposes herself to me. It's, we will not go towards your limits. You decide what you want to show. It's important. I say that, I insist, because I work a lot with girls that have no experience. And this is something I really like. And when they have no experience, sometimes they think they know why they do it. And even if they do, they don't necessarily realize the consequences on showing yourself on the internet in some positions. So I prefer to be clear and say to a girl that she doesn't have to show specific parts of her body. So I use nudity, but not always. And when I do, it's with someone who's really at her ease with nudity. It's important to,
You have to distinguish that.
say, yeah,
absolutely.
yes.
Yeah, I
Because
completely agree.
In the other hand, on the contrary, let's say, you'd have, and it's something we said before, I said, we could talk about that later. It's when you do what they call an academical nude, there is nudity, but there is no sensuality or no sexual tension. Or at least there is the will of not going into that direction. It's interesting, That means you can do sensual things with dressed people and not sensual things or sexual things with nude people.
Yeah, I think that's something that a lot of people don't take into account either, because so many people equate nudity to sexuality or sex. That's kind of the logical conclusion. for most people. And I think being able to differentiate that is an important point. That, like you said, there could be someone who's nude and it's not sexual, or maybe a different degree of sexuality. And then there's someone who is wearing clothes and there's a sexual or sensual element to it. Like you were saying in the academic sense.
A look can be more sensual than an ass.
Yeah. So then is that what you're trying to focus on is the sensuality of those moments?
Yes.
And
what I try to focus on is I try to create characters with the model. It's like being a filmmaker and you say, okay, let's play this character. Like today I should, for example, today I posted some photos of Adele.
Yeah.
If you look at her, she has a look. In all the pictures, if you look at her face, she expresses different things, and that's the character we decided to create that day. You know, she came with this character. We made the picture, and tomorrow I see her again, and we will create something else. You know, with another character that she can be, because I think there is a problem in this, the consideration on what that we get on what we do with a certain public. It's that nowadays it's okay to make the confusion between real life and representations of this life, you know.
Yeah.
If you know where I'm going, it's like it's either we are showing a fake image to make believe that we are happy or we are in a situation, or this is why we tag ourselves when we travel.
Pretty much all social media.
Wherever you go.
Yeah.
Everything you eat, and you give yourself an image.
Yeah.
Oh, then people are going to imagine you're rich and you go to Hawaii every weekend. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
But also there is also something in there is this confusion of it's the same. It's in the air for a long time now. It's the guy who wrote the book. He's supposed to be the character of the book. This is wrong. This is not what literature is about. And but now it's like everybody think that the actor is the character, that the writer is one of the characters, that it's always about himself, his life, and everything is real. You know?
Yeah.
They take quotes from a book that are said by a character in the book that was written by a writer who created a voice with which he took directions to express something and tell stories that are not his stories but invented stories, and we take it as something personal about the person who wrote the book. It's not necessarily, you know, it doesn't have to be like this. It's not TV reality everywhere, you know.
Do you think that there's a becoming a problem with people trying to integrate those characters too much into reality?
Yeah, I think people are crazy. It's like believing Bruce Willis actually saved the world every time he goes in it.
I like that example. That's a good example.
Yeah, but the thing is that if
or
you
Tom
take
Cruise in all the Mission Impossibles.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I loved it when you said that to her. You know.
Yeah.
There is an episode of Friends where there is this guy, Joey. Joey is an actor, and he's playing a character in a series, and he has a fan. She comes into his life. She's in love with him, and she makes the confusion all the episode between him and his character, and she calls him by his name. He's a doctor or something. That's pretty much what everybody's doing with Julia Roberts and Nicole Kidman and Tom Cruise and Leonardo DiCaprio.
Why do you think that's the case?
Because when you read a book, it's always the question. When you see journalists asking things to writers, it's always, so do you really believe this? And this is a sentence said by a character that may be a child, a woman, a cow, because you can make cow speak when you write a book.
Mm-hmm.
And then they are going to ask him if he really thinks what the cow said. They ask him on the first degree, of understanding. Do you really think this? It happened last. There is this French writer, Michel Houellebecq.
Mm-hmm.
Every time it's the same because he's a provoker. He knows that people are stupid, so he knows how to provoke. And one of his characters said that one French city is very ugly, and he's never seen something so ugly. And there is a journalist in the press who asked him, "Do you really believe this city is the ugliest thing you've seen on earth?" It's his character who went to the city.
Yeah.
We don't care if he thinks that. That's not the question of the book.
Yeah, it's probably missing the bigger point as well.
So then you have smart writers as Michel Houellebecq, who always write books where the main character is called Michel. So then people get even crazier. But he knows why he does it, because he sells book after that.
That's interesting. That's
And that's fine when he says that Niort is an ugly city. But in another book, he said that Islam was the most stupid religion on earth. So that was another problem.
Oh, yeah.
It was also said by a character, but everybody asked him, "Do you really think this?" And because he's a troll, he said yes. And that was another problem. But yeah, the problem is that we want to make a confusion between reality and this is also the star system, the TV reality, you call it the TV reality. You have real people being themselves and being filmed and being characters at the same time. It's confusing.
Yeah, for me personally, I can't help but think that a big part of this is because we actually lack so much real tension in our lives. I heard an anthropologist point this out, and so it's not my original idea or anything, but that our society we're significantly more comfortable than we've ever been. We have luxuries and time that we have never had, human beings, and that we were evolved to need tension in our lives. And I can't help but think that so much of this, that social media or watching films, it's a way to instigate attention in our lives without it actually being dangerous.
Yes.
That's
No, it's very interesting because you can't say he's wrong, because first of all, if you look at the quantity of productions that we make to entertain ourselves, that we look, movies, series, when I say entertaining, I don't say it's bad, but if there is only this and nothing else, yes, there is a problem, because all of this takes time and takes place in your mind, And in the end, let's talk about movie. A movie, there are differences between movies that are written by authors and entertainment movies. And sometimes the two mix together, and this is when you have a popular success that the university teacher and the gardener are going to love for different or same reasons. Because this is true. It's interesting because sometimes you have a movie that's popular and good, because it's more than just entertainment. I think this is something. Like, I have a kid, he's 12. We're talking a lot about this because he's growing and educating himself with musics, arts, books, stories. And for instance, he knows the difference between the series of book he's reading that comes out every month, and they try to sell him another episode and they will sell him 20. He has fun with it. It's interesting and he's addicted to it and he loves it. But also when he reads a classic book by a French writer, he kind of understands where is the difference, of the intention behind the book. If you read Maupassant, you read Jules Verne, it's different. It's not just entertainment. There is something more meaningful to you that you will keep with you after you read the book.
Yeah, there's a depth.
This is something. I think this is something that people. There is a lack of quest of this in people. And we are the people. And when we sit in front of Netflix and we decide that we're going to entertain, sometimes we don't give limits to it, and we do it instead of doing something that could be more important and less superficial, as you said.
Yeah. Yeah. I remember hearing something or reading something one time where it pointed out that the biological brain can't tell the difference between reality and make believe. So, for example, when you watch a movie, you respond to it emotionally. You'll cry at a sad part or laugh at something funny. And I never really thought about how much of an impact that could have. The fact that you can intellectually know that, well, this isn't real, but biologically, you're still getting the same sensations that you crave in human interactions, but it just doesn't have that depth.
Yes, you become superficial for real. Is this what you mean?
Yeah.
By watching superficial things, you become superficial.
Yeah. Yeah. And
I'm going to tell you something that's too bad if it stays in online forever and it's total bullshit. But sometimes I have this feeling that even the way we talk has changed because of what we watch. There is a standardization of the way we talk and our reactions. Like, let's say the typical American, oh my God, or amazing, or things like this that we say all the time to qualify things.
Yeah.
In an empty way. In the end, it's so empty because it's always the best thing you've heard, the best thing you've seen, the best thing you this, the best.
And I love it.
It's always it's always empty words.
It's love, like things. Love. Yeah. How many?
Oh yeah, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. I remember I was studying in Strasbourg and I saw a bunch of Americans passing by an Irish pub and looking at it and saying, so romantic. Yeah, an Irish pub, I wouldn't qualify it as romantic.
I wouldn't either, yeah.
They wanted to say something about it, but instead, and this is a problem because then you don't learn how to express your feeling in the correct way. You can't say why you like it, how you like it, because you just used empty words instead of trying to find meaning. Yeah.
So how do you hope that your work contributes to the depth in society then? How do you hope people are taking it?
First of all, the money question.
Mm-hmm.
If there is no money between you and your model, it's totally different. Because there is a society of models and photographers that are working together. And even when they do it for themselves, when you have lots of amateur photographers, artists that just get in touch with models and create together. When this contact is made, money can be a question right away. When money is a question, then it means you rent someone's services.
Yeah.
It means you're allowed to expect certain things that the model will do for you because you paid her. In most of the case, I think it's not what I do, and I will explain it after. But this is a way of doing things that, for me, looks weird. I have lots of friends, lots of amateur photographers, and they do it all the time, and it's fine. I don't judge it. It's not. I don't say it's bad or it's good. I just say that I need to do it differently. Okay, so this doesn't mean I never give money to any model, because sometimes I do, and if I make money with the photos, I will give money to the models after. That's sure.
Mm-hmm.
Also, if they travel and they have expenses, I help. Sometimes I prefer to help, by helping you. Like I can give you a bed for a night or two or something. I prefer it that way so that it's more of collaboration and you don't feel like you're here because you need the money, but you're here because you want to create something with me and with my photos. So to answer your question, how do I think what's my answer to these questions about these problems? It's that already with putting the money on the side, helps you a lot to see things differently. And I know a lot of photographers, and maybe you know what I mean, because if you do what we do, you are asked money by models, and sometimes you say no, sometimes you say yes, and you have your own, I don't know, your own logic about it.
Yeah.
But you also know lots of times, or lots of other photographers that, or even models that are not satisfied by the fact that they do it for money. They would love it to do it for something else. You know what I mean? You do it because you need to eat. Sometimes you ask money to someone.
Yeah.
But this is not the main reason. But you also have models, they have no sense in photography, no interest, nothing. They just know they're cute, they know how to pose,
Yeah.
and they know how to be satisfying for the guy who's going to pay for the services.
Yeah.
These girls, I'm not interested. I don't get in touch with them, and you know.
I actually I kind of feel the same way. I don't really want to work with people who are only interested in the money aspect, and not that, for example, wanting money is bad or anything like that. I think it's obviously it's a necessity. People want,
Yes,
they need to eat. I just don't want to work with people who don't really care about me specifically or my work, most specifically.
exactly.
Yeah, and so it's hard
And
to differentiate between those
first,
people.
yeah, and you know, if money comes first, then it's gonna come first. That's
Yeah.
it. It's the end. And also it kind of fakes the relation.
Yeah, exactly. It's especially when I think my mentality is I'm trying to create art. Now, whether it's good art or bad art, that can be debated by whoever wants to. But I'm trying to create art, and if someone's not there to do the same, then I think it's going to detract from that. So I think it's all very nuanced, and it's obviously difficult. But as far as when people view your work, what do you want them to take from it, or what do you hope to contribute to kind of society or culture in general?
I hope they will see that I'm trying to do something genuine. I hope they will see my intentions behind my work, and if someone says to me, "Oh, I like the stories you're telling us with your photos," it's fine. I'm okay with that. For example, could be another answer, but this answer, for example, is already something. Like, I told you a story, and you got into it. It made your imagination work, your interpretation work. This is already a goal to me.
Mm-hmm.
But also, if I go back on what you said before about money, and it's also, there is something I wanted to say. It's sometimes you can have also money and creation at the same time. You can have meetings of artists that are made by a brand, and they are going to give them lots of money, and the results of the collaboration are going to be great because something is going to be created, because people are going to gather, share some ideas, try some things, do some things. We all know that that's why industry meets artists. But sometimes it can be done fakely too. You know, they make fake meetings, they just associate people, and that's the problem with photography. That once the photo is out, then that's what people keep in their mind and will remind forever. You know, you can say, "Oh, this singer and this designer, they made the cover of this magazine," but in reality, they've never met before. You know? They're just going to fakely make a family of people, a crew, or whatever, and then people think it's true and imagine things when there is nothing behind.
Do you think that your work is a reaction to that?
No, because I'm not in that industry. You know, I'm just doing my things on my side. I'm so little. You know? So it's no. It's just something that I see, and I know that in what I do, I try to have. You know, when I start to work with a model, it's going to sometimes last a little bit. We are going to see each other on a I don't know, regularly for a year, 2 years, or even more sometimes. And this is the relationship that we have together behind the photos. Uh, I think sometimes you can see it through my photos. You feel that she's confident. You feel that, and these things, yes, they are a reaction to what you said, to the superficiality of things.
Yeah, it's. I'm just kind of processing everything that you're saying and we're talking about here, because I think one of the difficulties with this subject matter that I think about, and maybe you can have an answer to this, is there's obviously a lot of shame and taboos surrounding nudity in this kind of work. And I didn't know if maybe your work was trying to show something or a different aspect or a way to exist that ran contrary to how generally how society wants to perceive it.
There are lots of things in what you said.
Yeah.
Because there is the hypersexualization of everything. That is something that is true. So where do I start? I'll start this way. I wouldn't. I say the taboo. I go on the taboo.
Mm-hmm.
Taboo is when you can't stand something and it's too strong, too dangerous, it's not tolerable for the society. It has to be described as a taboo so that the whole society gets an answer to this and take a direction that's contrary to it. It's like what I see today is that there is the taboo on certain things and not on others. Because it's, as you said in your question, you talk about the taboo, and in the end, you talk about the hypersexualization.
Yeah, that's absolutely true.
And it happens at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
At the same time, you get banned on social media because you posted a nipple of something that you would try to call art or not entertainment, let's say. And in the other hand, you turn on your TV, you put MTV on, and it's like having a porn channel on all day long, and everybody is fine with it. It's weird. There is this industry playing with the codes of pornography all the time, and everybody's fine because everybody knows that behind this, in the end, everybody watches porn. Also, everybody's fine because this makes money, and it's a good model because when you make money, it's good. And in the other hand, they can't stand the sight of a nipple in another context that's more genuine, let's say. Let's not even say it's artistic or not. Let's say it's something more intimate, private. Yeah, what they can't stand is the nudity in private in the end. But if you're on a stage with all the lights on you and you do it, it's good, it's okay. It's fun.
Almost as long as it's for entertainment.
Yeah. Because really, when people ask about censorship, I'm not against censorship. I think kids look at things and some images are too strong and they're not ready to see them and they have to be educated before. So I'm not against it.
I honestly am not either. Yeah.
But please, if you tell me that MTV is fine, all the videos are fine for any age, I'm not okay,
Yeah, well, my analogy is you don't feed steak to an infant. It's that with human beings, there's certain ages where you can process certain things, and so I have children too. I have 4 kids, and they're somewhat of a similar age as your child. And there are certain things that I absolutely do not want them to see. So just a blanket statement, censorship is bad. I think a lot of people use that way too generally. I agree, maybe in the context of, like breasts or nipples or, certain levels of nudity, but there are absolutely things that I don't want my children seeing.
Yeah, and then the question is, Instagram, Facebook, whatever. It's that they are so hypocritical, you say, about it.
Yeah.
Because on one hand, they ban us for no reasons because we're no one. But if you're someone famous, known, whatever, you can post whatever you want, and it's fine because you play with the limits all the time. You know, it's like the difference between the girl who has a tiny tanga and she's fully shaved, so you won't see anything, but you see through it. I mean, the shape is here, but you don't actually see it.
Yeah.
When on the other hand, on another picture, you can imagine that the girl has no panties or she's taking it off, and that's sexual because she's taking the panty off. When the other one is fine because you don't clearly see. Or you know, that's so it's not okay. It's the way things are interpreted that it's not okay.
Yeah,
it's wrong.
The double
It should be the
standards.
contrary, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely.
What should be banned is the vulgarity, or not even sometimes even vulgarity is fine. If you decide to watch it, it's fine. The problem is that internet should allow you to do everything. Like if you go on Flickr, for example, you can decide if your profile is restricted, moderated, or safe. Okay, so I put my profile on restricted. So I'm sure that according to the rules of this site, if someone registers, creates his account, if he clicks on I don't want to see restricted accounts, he will never find me. You know, informatics is supposed to solve all these problems. Then you have social networks that are mainstream and that are applying other rules. And because they are mainstream, we want to be on them and we want to keep on expressing what we want, but then we don't apply to the rules. We're not good. We're not fine with the rules. We don't respect the rules because we want to show things differently or we interpret things differently. That's a problem. Because, of course, Instagram knows why he bans the nipple. You know, there is an intention behind it. It's never free. It's a choice. When you choose something, you exclude, you reject something else.
Yeah.
There becomes politics. You know, it's where it starts.
Yeah, no, that's true. Yeah, you close one
Why
door
did
and
Tumblr change their mind recently? Why?
Oh.
You know, why?
Yeah, that was weird.
Why? First of all, why would they all change their minds to the same exact conclusion? You know.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Yeah, like they could change their policies. Okay, they change their policies, but for different policies, not for one exact same policy everywhere.
Yeah, we can't help but think it's motivated, like you said, by money. That's
Also
the only...
maybe by the fact that there is only one person owning everything behind this. You know, only one person. It's all the same guy.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, it's. I was even recently having a conversation about during the dawn of, you know, not really the dawn, but during industrialization, there was a reason why laws were created against monopolies, and these aren't really applicable to any of the tech industry at all, which is kind of interesting. But that's a whole other kind of rant.
Yeah.
But but one of the things that you know, I'm curious with is with your art. I mentioned before, we're talking kind of taboos and stuff like that. Do you feel like you have a lack of a sense of shame that a lot of other people do because of your involvement in your work?
Yes, it's interesting. I like this question because I think that doing what I do, I pushed or I changed my shame, the limits of my shame, or the limits of what I would tolerate or show. Yes, or show. Yeah. If you look at my works, it's clear that from the beginning to now, it's getting more explicit.
So
I've done more explicit things recently than ever before.
And I would assume with more confidence.
That's for sure.
As well.
Confidence, yes. Confidence, exactly. And also get the confidence of someone, the model with who you do the things.
So,
as I said, I'm going to give you I'm going to tell you a story that I often tell.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
It's one time I was supposed to shoot with a model. She's called Clémentine Poulain. She's a very nice Italian model. We knew each other from years, from social networks, and we knew we would do something together one day, but it took a long time. And when it happened that she came to Paris, we discussed a project that was clearly explicit, really explicit. And when she arrived at my place, we started talking about it. I didn't feel like doing it. No, it wasn't possible at that time. Because this is not you do the first time. This is not what you do, the first time. I wasn't confident. And I knew, first of all, that she didn't know me enough, to do this and then maybe regret it or not. So I said, well, let's switch to something else, let's do something different. We'll find, and we will have another occasion another time. And we did have another occasion, and we did something more explicit, and it was really fine.
Yeah, that's having that obviously trust and respect and that positive dynamic is
and this is what allows me to change my limits and to be less ashamed, more ashamed, or there is a word I'm looking for right now. To dare, yes. To dare. I dare now I dare to do things that I wouldn't dare before.
Would you encourage other people to push their limits in that respect of shame?
No, I think it's you don't have to encourage to push or not to push, because there is not one answer for everybody. There are some people that will regret to push just to push, and some others that will regret that they didn't push when they maybe should have pushed. I think it's an individual answer that everyone has. It's like it's your sexuality. It's your if it's sexuality, it's the same. It's the same if you take a drug. It's the same. Some people, they feel that they want to. They really feel like it. It's not because they want to do like the others. It's because they want to try this experience. They shouldn't be pushed by anybody or not pushed by anybody. You know what I mean? It's the same with the drug, with the shame, or dare to show things that are sexual or sensual. Yes, of course, you can answer easily and say, oh, it would do some good to some people to try some things sometimes, open your legs and your mind will follow. Maybe.
Well, just to clarify, I didn't mean towards the model. Answer, right? Yeah. I didn't mean it towards the model per se, because I especially in that situation, that wouldn't be appropriate in my mind. But
I wasn't talking about the model. Okay. I was talking about people in general.
Okay. I just wanted to make that clear. So.
Oh yeah, no, it's clear. The question was, should people push in their own lives?
Yeah.
Their level of shame, or dare to try to do things that they wouldn't dare before? Mm-hmm. The answer is what I said before. I think they shouldn't be pushed or not. They should try to feel what they want and know what they want, and if it's interesting to them.
Yeah.
And let's try in good conditions. And it's the same for sex, drugs. I don't know, experiences like this. But in photos, there is this guy. He really wants to try to shoot his wife when she gets out of the bathtub. If you really feel like there is something thrilling about it, let's try. Why not?
Do you think that it could ever go too far, or you don't have to answer this, but even personally, have you kind of crossed the line where you've come back from and said, no, I don't really want to venture in that direction?
Okay, so your question, correct me if I'm wrong, is a little bit on the crossroads of sexuality and expression of sexuality, right?
Yeah. And I was going to say, we were talking about shame, and there's obviously a line where different people are comfortable on different levels. Have you ever crossed sort of a line and kind of come back from it realizing that, okay, that's a line that I don't really want to go anymore? Or do you think that there is a line just in general?
Well, I think there are lines, plural, and everybody has his own line or different lines. And in the relationship you create with the model, it's what I try to get is to understand where is this line, and then we discuss about it and we try to do something around the line, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
But also there is also something else. If you read Manara, the drawer, the erotic drawer, Manara, Milo Manara,
I don't
Italian
think so.
guy. He wrote a little text about censorship, and he said, yeah, well, I draw people, you know, I'm not hurting anyone. When you draw a girl, if you want to draw her dead with a knife in the throat, it's okay, you know, you didn't hurt her. When you make pictures and when you deal with sexuality in your topics or sensuality, and if you need to have certain positions, expressions, situations, and if you have to ask the girl to do it for real, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that's a huge difference. Because if you draw the girl, there is no problem. Actually, it's not the same to represent, a drawing and a picture. So I have to understand the limits of my model, and I have to also know what are my limits and why I want to go in a direction. Also, I'm married. This is also an answer. I'm married, and I have to have in mind what my wife wouldn't like me to do. You know, I don't want to offend her and do something that makes her uncomfortable.
Yeah. Everything that you're saying, it all revolves around respect for others, which I think is.
Crossing the line can be not asking, and like, let's imagine you have a model and she intends to do something really explicit, and you talked about it with her, and then you do it, and then the results come, and then you just didn't think about it. It can be genuine, but it's a lack of respect, you know, because then your wife is going to take that in her face, and maybe it would have been better to tell her before, oh, we're doing this way, you know, just to, it's respect.
Yeah, absolutely. Which I think is a key point, but I think it's something that is can be overlooked quite a bit, that with all of this, especially for people who aren't involved in working with nudity and, you know, working with nude models and being in that situation, I think that is just the fundamental aspect right there, is having the respect for the other person and who they are and their lines, and kind of what you were saying.
Yeah.
I think that's absolutely critical.
Yeah, and this is a little parenthesis, but we talked earlier about money, and you clearly see where money becomes a problem with what we just say right now with respect, is that money is going to push, as you said before, money is going to push people's limits, because there is a goal, it's money. And you have girls that are going to be models. How many stories do you know about girls that were models or even made porn or whatever, and then they regretted it so much that they had to take all the images down from internet, and it's understandable, because they suddenly maybe realized that they were a slave for money and they could do something else, you know, or whatever.
Yeah.
So
it definitely happens.
It's really different for me. Even if you do porn, it's different. You know, there is right now this alternate porn that you can find online with people that make it outside of an industry.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it changes the message, and because money is seen differently, it changes everything.
Yeah.
Even if you do the same thing in the end, it's like you take two shootings with the same results, the same explicit or not explicit, the same things that you see, and it's all different because the relationship that put the people together to create this picture are different.
Yeah, they're it's definitely a different relationship when money enters the equation. I mean, and that goes with everything. I mean, how many times have you heard, for example, families being split apart because fights over the inheritance or something like that. Money has an effect on people in negative ways. There's no doubt about that. But now you mentioned though pornography, and a question that I've asked almost everybody. What is the line for you between artistic nudity and pornography? And how do you even think of your work in regards to that?
This is also a tough question, because if you take the word pornography and what it means for real, it's already hard to define. So maybe it's easier if we say pornography, because that's the question. When you say pornography, do you think about an industry or do you think about an expression? Because pornography, there is also graphy in it. It means that you write something, and porn, I guess it's supposed to be something like dirt. It's to write the dirt. It's dirt, naughty things that are bad. This is the meaning. So there is no problem in doing pornography in the first sense. There is, but when you talk about pornography as an industry, then the answer is totally different. You know what I mean? I think the two words, they always kind of interact together, or there is a confusion.
No, absolutely. Where I'm coming from, I guess, is how would you define pornography as opposed to art, that nude art?
Yeah. Okay.
Especially
my easy answer is. Oh no, sorry, I interrupted you. Especially what?
The other part was even just how you think of your work in regards to both of those definitions. I would assume you wouldn't define your work as pornographic, but I could just be making an incorrect assumption. But I think that's also how you would define pornography, because I think it's that we use the term pornography, and as you even were stating, it can be a difficult thing to have some clarity on, because what is pornographic? Yes. My work has been some people have said it's pornographic. I don't see that in any way. There's no intention there, but at the same time, someone could define what I do as being pornographic. I think there's people who could define your work as being pornographic. I don't think it is, but I'm curious to know how you would define those statements and where you think your work stands in relation to it.
My first answer is that when I'm asked, I often answer that pornography is when you masturbate, or when the goal of the image, more than the intention, let's say the goal, the image was made for you to masturbate. Maybe it's too easy as an answer, but it fits in some situations. Mm-hmm. Because then I consider that what I do when I do it is not made for you to masturbate. But I don't know what people masturbate on, or even worse, I know some people would masturbate on anything.
Yeah,
even
cars.
Even your dog's picture, kids' pictures. So it's a problem, because I'm not responsible for what you do with my picture. I do it with my idea. It shouldn't be for you to masturbate. I can't control it. So in my intention, no, it's not pornographical, but it raises, and this is where I stand for erotic, because erotic is a limit right under. It can show the same, but the goal of the image is different. In the end, what you get from the image is not the intention to masturbate. It's the idea. It's the image itself that you will keep in your mind, that will bring you things. I don't know. You carry an image in your memory, as you carry a story from a book, a story that you liked. You don't know why. It talks to you. It talks to something in you. It talks to your stories. It's an interpretation of things. This is where you like it. And an erotic picture can be like this. When a pornographic picture, if it's just porn, it's not meant to do that. Then maybe it's the same as we said before, industry can meet art, and sometimes you can have something that's meant to be sold as pornography, and that's a good piece of art too. Also, there can be a place for an art that's only pornographical because it's explicit. If pornographical means explicit, yes, sometimes my work is pornographical because it's explicit. Because if the girl spreads the legs on the chair and you can see everything, and if she looks at you through the camera and she's trying to provoke you, yes, it's going to be pornographical. The result is, as in we are showing something bad or considered as bad. But in another hand, I didn't do it to put it on YouPorn and to sell it for people to masturbate.
Do you ever?
But maybe some will. Maybe some will. We don't know.
Yeah, and like you said, you can't control that, but that's not what the goal was. Does it upset you if people take it out of the context you created in?
I think it's you can't know. You can't really know. Even if your photo is liked, like let's say people tell you they like your photo, you're going to be satisfied with that because they like it, so it goes in your direction. It satisfies your ego, whatever. It's satisfying. But maybe you don't know the reasons why they like your photos, and maybe you wouldn't like the reasons why they like your photos. Maybe you don't want to know. So maybe someone's going to tell you that he doesn't like your photos for good or bad reasons to you. But maybe someone else is going to tell you he likes your photos. It's kind of, so the question was, am I mad if they take it out of, but I don't really know how they take it. I can't know how all the people take it. This is why the other day I did this story on Instagram and I put, oh, can you tell me what's your interpretation of this photo? Mm-hmm, so you can put words on it. This is something I like because this is where you discover what's in people's mind, and this is where you put more than just the photo and I like it. You go, you try to be less superficial.
Yeah.
This is interesting. Internet should be used more like this. When you say you share and you express yourself, this could be the right way to do it.
Yeah, to have.
But we use emojis more because we like it.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, the back and forth to be able to interact, more. Now, one of the throughout our conversation, you've mentioned a number of times. You've talked about stories.
Yes.
What kind of stories are you trying to tell or inflict in people?
You think it's a way not to answer your question, but it's not. It's that I think each story is a story, and every single person who sees it can see it the way he wants. I mean, another way to say it is that I don't write stories with words, I could. Sometimes I write texts on my blog or whatever. I write. When I write, I use words and I say things, and you read them with your eyes, and you know how to read, and there is a dictionary, and words have meaning, and we can talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
If you use photos to say something, then it's difficult to me to give my interpretations of my photos. Because I think there are many interpretations, and what I like is the fact that some people can tell you what are their interpretations, and you can compare it to you. So I don't have, one thing to say. I have some stories to show. Can't really say. I don't have a message, if that's the question.
Well, even just, I didn't know if, because I know it can be difficult, but I didn't know if you saw a vague narrative that was threading through your work.
Oh yeah, some elements I use. I can say there are things that interest me that I can talk about. Like for example, in my works, I've made some series where you follow a girl from outside to inside, or the contrary. You can see her in the street, and then you can see her in an apartment, in a closed place. And I've done that quite a few times now. And this is something, these are elements that I choose to keep for all the series. And then I try to repeat. And then it's on how I'm going to play with the elements that's going to be interesting. For example, I don't know, you can use nudity outside in the public space and dress the girl inside. You can show her undress, dress, outside, inside, and it will have different meanings. And in the end, it's going to tell a story that will maybe have a beginning and an end and something in the middle. And I don't really know, this is an answer. I don't really know the story I want to tell, but I know that in my story, there is this character, she's a girl, and we will find her outside or inside and follow her outside or inside and play with all the images that you can create by changing places, clothes, makeup, situations. I don't know.
Yeah.
I like it, for example, you see the girl at the window, at first. You're someone in the street, you're in the eye of the photographer, and you look at the window at the first floor, and you see a silhouette of a girl, And on the second image, you're inside with her. This is something I like to use,
Yeah.
Use elements like this. So I have many elements like that I could talk about, but I don't really know the story I want to tell. It's more I use elements.
I kind of am probably in somewhat of a similar position. If someone were to ask me that question, I don't know if I wouldn't really have a clear answer. The way that I can't help but think of it is if there is a story going on, I'm not really conscious of it. I just feel like I kind of am writing it as I go. So it probably doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Also, I think there are differences between photographers as you and me that are writing one same story with different models, and some others, more as me, that are writing different stories with different models. You know what I mean? Some photographers, they do their photos, and you look at their photos and you're like, oh, this is him. It's his signature. And the girl can change, the place can change, the background can be totally different, and it's his signature. And this guy, he has the strength of changing all the elements and having a style that keeps you in his storytelling through all the faces you're going to see.
Yeah, I'm hoping that...
This is not what I do, for example. I do more one series with something and another. And then sometimes it crosses, it can have a cross path and talk together. That's not necessary.
Yeah, it'll maybe influence another shoot, but they don't necessarily all interconnect or anything.
Yeah, the question is, do you always make the same picture over and over? It's like, do a writer writes the same story over and over? Do a filmmaker, some say, I hate Tarantino. He's making the same movie over and over.
Yeah.
Maybe this is what it is. Maybe it's the. If you look at Lynch, yes, you could say that, but it's also not really true. But yeah, he's always looking for something he's not finding and trying again and again.
Yeah, and trying to. I think that's part of even the creative process is just trying to get to the heart of something that you find to be mysterious.
Yes.
Is there...
This is what... You remember what he says? Lynch, he says, most of the people, they ask you what's the meaning of your movie when they don't even have a meaning in their lives.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yes. You ask something to have a meaning when maybe it's not the meaning is not an answer.
Do you have anything in your life that you find to be infinitely mysterious? Are there
In my life or in life in general?
Oh, in your life, if there was, we mentioned, you were mentioning David Lynch, and I had brought up. I really believe, like a lot of artists, it's about that they find something mysterious. Whether, for example, like Tarantino, it's about revenge, or he's making the same movies over and over. And in a sense, I think a lot of creatives do that. I think some do it better than others. They'll tackle subject matter in more complicated ways. Do you see yourself as trying to tackle something that you find to be mysterious, and as I would say it, infinitely mysterious, that you just want to keep digging?
Yeah, I think infinitely mysterious. Yes, it's the word, because you have some things that have no explanation. They have no explanation, but you keep having pleasure to dig and to understand. Maybe the main goal is to understand, or try to understand. So something is mysterious until you can explain it. Usually, when you can explain it, it's less mysterious. And then we would go back on the question of God. There, is there something that is so mysterious that you feel like you can't explain it?
Yeah.
So if this is your question, if there is something mysterious to this, some things are mysterious. The question, the most famous question: why are we here? Or why can we communicate? Why? The meaning of life. These questions, yes, they are infinitely mysterious, because they're too big. But in myself, like personally, answering yes, I have something really mysterious in me would be like I have a little secret that I won't tell, and I don't think I have a secret.
Yeah, well, that's a legitimate answer. Yeah, because the way that I think of life a lot of times is in a way we're sort of like archaeologists. That part of why we're here is maybe just to try to uncover part of reality, and it obviously all fits into a much bigger scheme. And usually people find things to be fascinating for different reasons. And that's why I was asking. I didn't know if there were certain topics that you found to be kind of reoccurring constantly in your own mind, and that seemed to come out and be expressed. And obviously, I'm sure there's a lot of them, and it's all very, very complicated.
I think about lots of topics all the time. I'm like, I have like this little voice in my head, and sometimes it should just try to stop to speak a little. So I think too much, even maybe. I'm like over and over about the same questions.
Yeah, I do the same
thing. Politics is really interesting to me. Society, how people gather, how do they choose that they are going to have leaders, and, all these. It's like philosophy. Philosophy, it's meant to be the science where all the questions are interesting.
Yeah.
So
yeah,
and if I have some that come back more and often, it's telling the truth. Being honest. This is a real question about people's behavior. Every day, it's a question I wonder every day. How do people? What are people's position with the truth? When do they say the truth? I think it's interesting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, because how many masks do we wear during a day?
Yeah. For example, and why do we wear them? Because we want to protect ourselves. But then when we wear them, do we not hurt some people? It's like, and is it society that wants that? A question like the Rousseau's, Rousseau, the philosopher. The question is man bad, or is it the society that turns him bad? This is a question I think every day you can wonder. You can ask yourself.
And it will change sometimes during the day, your answer to it.
And with people, you're going to talk to people that are going to explain you another way of seeing it. But But I really consider it's the society.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I completely understand. I actually, not to digress, but I recently, last year I read this book, and it was a pretty incredible book in my opinion. It was called Elephant in the Brain, or it's called Elephant in the Brain. I forget the author's name. It's like Kevin Similar or something, but he proposes that the reason why we lie to ourselves is to better lie to other people. So it's basically to be able to sell our lies better. So it's pretty interesting, but that's kind of getting a little off topic.
Yes. So you want to be. So that this means you want to be the character that people. So this is where what we were talking about before. This is when you do things to satisfy the others without thinking. And what's funny about that and so absurd is that maybe, can you imagine, maybe this totally pink image and happy Disney image of a world where people, instead of doing that, would have tried to find what's inside of them and would realize that it's the same as the others and no one wants to lie to himself and everybody is more peaceful like this, What if,
Yeah.
But sometimes I have stupid questions.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think, too, one of the points that he makes that I thought was really interesting is that a big part of why we lie to ourselves, he actually doesn't agree that it's to protect our ego, because he thinks that would actually that's not sustainable. He says the reason why, this is his take, is that we lie to ourselves because we're constantly expressing through micro expressions and through our body language what our real intents are. So we can actually read each other very easily. So to throw people off, it basically comes down to convincing yourself of a lie to the greatest degree you can, so that you can better sell it, really, so that other people can't read it. So it kind of throws people off your trail a bit, it's
a marketing technique too.
Yeah, basically.
Like and it will look funny in the conversation, but I've been told a few weeks ago that that Leica sellers, at least in France, I don't know, but I guess in the whole world, they were given 40% on the price of a Leica, and they had the right to buy one every 2, 3, 4 years. They had to register because Leica knew that if all the sellers had a Leica, they would sell Leica. It's the same. It's like
Yeah.
It's the best argument is to do that. Convince them, give them.
Oh, it's amazing. I just recently, my wife and I started watching a documentary called The Century of the Self. I don't know if it's about Edward Bernays, who was basically the person who started PR, and he's a nephew of Freud, which it's very interesting. I think it's a 4-part documentary from the BBC, and it's mind-blowing how all of that started, all the marketing, and but at the basis of it is his belief, and it's been his belief that essentially people needed to be controlled, and the way that they're controlled is to make them feel like they were lacking something, and then to offer the solution. And this is sort of the very much, especially the American, it's a very American thing and phenomenon. It's obviously spread because of it's consumerism, essentially. And
yes,
this person started it. Yeah.
These are topics that I always think about. How the marketing, how do they sell us things, and how you can see periods in marketing and styles and philosophies in the bad use of that word. You can see how it changes. Like, I can give you an example. 10 years ago, it was the wave of the zero. It would sell us product that had nothing inside. The Coca was zero, and then the shampoo were zero, the soaps. were 0%, and you didn't know about what, but zero. Everything was zero. They can go to that idea that for 10 years they're going to sell us something, and the concept behind is zero. Emptiness. There is in the product, there is no of this, no of that. That's fun, and it changes. After the zero, it's going to be something else. Right now, they say that in marketing, they don't sell the products anymore. They sell the fact that you feel well when you have the product.
Oh yeah,
it's emotional. The well-being, emotional.
Yeah,
because it's a period of crisis and it's hard, and images on TV are hard. So people, they need to relax. So they won't sell them something that they need, but something that will make them feel better. So they will go get their nails cured and everything because they need to feel better. It's interesting.
Absolutely. Then, so with we're touching here on marketing. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and I know we're kind of running kind of low on time here. I don't want to take up your whole day. You have a lingerie shop that you are you one of the owners, or are you the owner, or
it's my wife's.
Okay. How do you then, with this marketing and all of this,
yes.
How do you bring these worlds together?
It's awful. It's an awful struggle, everyday struggle.
I like that answer. It's awful.
Yes, it's like, it's awful because it's like, okay, you've seen what we're trying to do. It's called Les Rituels.
Yeah, well, actually, if you could explain it a bit for everybody, I would really appreciate that. If you could talk about it.
It's a concept store in Paris, but it's a concept with so it puts together an art gallery that's only dedicated to art forms that express sensuality, eroticism, or human body, those topics. And it's a lingerie shop, so it means we sell underwear for everyday or underwear for special events, something more refined. And because it's our business and we want it to succeed, and we need to, because we have fees to pay and lots of money that go out,
a child to raise.
You have to sell, and this is awful because when we created this shop, we created it because we wanted it to be different. We're working only with designers that are pretty small, no big brands, no industry as you can imagine it. We don't work with the brands that are sold in supermarkets or in the regular lingerie shop neither. So, and we develop our own imagery. We use my photography to show women differently as they are, and we try to, we do not Photoshop them. We do not make them look thinner because that's not the point. We have models that are men, that are trans, that are old, that are young, that are with hair, with no hair. We have all the types. And this is the answer will be that it's a struggle because you have to sell things. So you'd have to be a marketer and imagine how to sell things. And in the other hand, you want to do something honest. So it's difficult to make both at the same time. Keep on being honest and try to make money. It's difficult.
Yeah, that's a hard balance to keep.
And sometimes you just, okay, so today is the day I write a newsletter, what words I'm going to use, And if you cross the line and you go into easy marketing techniques, maybe you will make more money. Maybe you will lose some other clients that know that this is not the marketing they want because they know this is bullshit. It's a question. It's an everyday question. So for now on, we try to keep on having the same message, try to be honest and genuine, work the way we do. We've changed our philosophy on some things, like, let's say, the origins of the products. Pretty much all the industry in clothes, not only in lingerie, is pretty much disgusting if you look at it, the way it works, how the things are made, where they come from, how much they cost, and how much they sell it. It's pretty much disgusting. So we work with brands and designers that are aware of that the most as we can. Even if it's made in China, we have to have a link, something, be informed about how we will never sell something made in Bangladesh, for example, because it's a nightmare.
The ethical aspects and everything, you take all that into account.
But even that, it's hard.
Oh yeah.
Because
that sounds like a nightmare, honestly, to figure all that out.
Yeah.
Yeah. Cause you'll learn one thing, to do your homework on that seems incredibly difficult.
Yes. And the public's expectation. It's like trying to educate people or inform them at least. When you explain them, some they understand like that the regular way of selling clothes is weird. It's the way they do with the supermarkets and everything. It's not good. I think, I don't know how it is in the States or in Canada, but here at least we can feel that more and more people are aware of the fact that when they buy something, they say yes to a system.
Yeah, I think people are becoming more aware of it, but I don't think very many people do anything about it because I think that they kind of feel somewhat trapped. I think, like, for example, clothing, like, you go, okay, well, I know I don't want to buy something that is made unethically, but at the same time, like, everyone has kind of the sense that, but can I afford anything else? And so I think that's the thing, is that what happens psychologically is most people are willing to sacrifice someone else for their well-being. And
yes.
I think that's ultimately what it comes down to. It's sort of the concept of, where, like, in morality and ethics, it's okay to kill someone who's trying to kill you. So if you have like a general sense of fear about your well-being, you feel justified in doing something that you wouldn't do otherwise.
So saying that is like saying that consumerism is the law of nature, but worldwide.
Yeah, it's kind of a
like
of a catch.
You have to enslave someone at the other side of the world so that you can drive your fancy new car.
Yeah,
and you don't
because
it's boring.
Exactly, and I think it a lot of that, like having the fancy new car, for example, the way that it's pitched to us, and this is kind of the marketing and consumerism, is that if you don't have it, then there's it's obviously presented in a way that it's something that you need. It's, you know what I mean? It's not that it's, that you don't need a BMW, but at the same time, it's sold to you in a way that it's like, you need this BMW if you are to express who it is you really are. So it becomes this kind of emotional play. And I think that most people aren't conscious of that enough to step outside of it and realize that it's not truly threatening. And most of the things that we're afraid of aren't actually truly threatening. But that's a huge topic right there that that doesn't even scratch the surface. And that I'm sure you're extremely familiar with, trying to run a business and even to a large degree, the photography that you do. I think it all plays into it. You mentioned that there are models who get into it because they think it's something that's cool, and they don't realize till they get to a few years down the line that it's something that they didn't really want. And so I think it's just a very difficult system to navigate, and I think it's becoming more difficult because people aren't thinking rationally about all of this. They're responding emotionally.
Yeah, the thing is, I think I've said it before, but I think sometimes the answer is try to know what you want.
Yeah,
at first.
Absolutely, and most people don't know what it is they want.
Yes, or what they, as you said before, they lie to themselves. They don't need anybody to tell them. They already get the lie by themselves, and then they act so that the lie becomes the truth. But I'm going to give you an example. If a girl comes to me and she wants to model for me, and if she's going to tell me she does it for personal reasons, like for example, some take it as therapy. There is this word empowerment that's awfully used today that we didn't say, but because for personal reasons they have a quest themselves and they want to have this experience and they chose me. I really like it. I feel proud that they chose me, and I understand the direction and the why they did it, because they tell me, and I think it's fine. In the other hand, a girl that comes to you and does it because she feels she wants to, but she didn't really think about it, and you feel she's not really secure about what she's going to do, and maybe she will regret. I think it's your duty to tell her. And I think it's where there is a line that you can cross.
Yeah. Taking responsibility for that is, for you as a photographer, that becomes difficult. You definitely have to, I think, build up to that level of confidence, because it takes an awareness yourself. And in a way, you are also putting yourself in a position where you're kind of making a judgment for them, which some could take as being infringing on someone's freedom. But
yes,
I think that's the thing too, is that you also have to understand, you as the photographer, like I know personally, I never want to be in a position where I'm going to be at the root or even close to the root of something that will bring anyone harm. So
so the difference, it's easy. When you shoot a 20 years old and you shoot a 40 years old woman,
yeah,
here you see the difference clearly.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there is also something like this. It's the same as you can make a comparison to in a sexual relationship. Why not? But also in a relationship with someone. If you feel that if you feel that it's not balanced between you and the person is on and you're off, I mean, you have to say it,
Yeah.
It's the same. You have the experience and you know the answer. So maybe you should take her to that path and tell her, I'm not sure do it little by little, or, think about it, or, try to know what you want.
Yeah, that's that takes a lot of self-awareness, and a lot of people, I don't see them display that.
Yeah, when a girl comes to me and she's never done photos, if she's 20, in her 20s, I always ask her, do you really, 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 really want to do that? Really?
Yeah.
I don't ask why, but I ask, really, do you really want to do it? You're sure?
Planting that doubt in their heads can be a good thing. I think it's good for, I think you should be able to justify that action to yourself, at least, because it can have consequences, undesirable consequences.
Mm.
Now, you mentioned you're mentioning relationships. How much of your work is your wife a part of?
A lot. I started before I met her, and then and when I met her, she wasn't modeling, and then she started for a while. That was before we had the shop and the project. She did some modeling too for other photographers, and because she started with me. So for me, in my work, she's really important. Like, if I could, it could be okay to work only with her. She has, on my website, I have a section only for her, because when it's with her, it's always different. It's something else, because we have our trust, our relationship, that it is strong, and creating photos is also part of it.
Yeah, that's something I can definitely appreciate, because that's similar to me and my wife, our relationship. I work with my wife literally almost every single day, shooting something, even if it's just to stay practicing. So no, I think that that's definitely a very special dynamic that a lot of people don't have, and that I know that I'm appreciative of. So I'm sure that you are as well.
Yes, it's important, and also it brings its own difficulties sometimes because of another line, a line between your privacy and what you want to show. It reminds me of the questions you asked me earlier about my shame, if I push my limits. And with my wife, yes, the fact that we can show what we show today with no shame, or the fact that I dare to do it, it's an evolution. It came slowly, little by little. And as the trust and the relationship was growing between us, the more freedom we had.
And that probably, I would assume, has informed even the way that you interact with other models as well. Being able to see the progression of that trust and being able to have that intimacy and has probably allowed you to pick up on the cues of other people.
Yes, because I think you have to make your mind clear about some questions. And my relationship with my wife, it helped me to make some choices, or not to make some choices, to put some lines somewhere, or to understand some things. But this is another question. It's like, it's the relationship between the photographer and the model, what it is, what people think of it. And it's also a big topic.
Yeah.
Because also of what we said before, because of the confusion I think there is between what we show in our photos and what we do for real. It's not because we make something sensual or sexual that there is actual sex. And sometimes this is also the line between pornography and not pornography. It's if there is actual sex. It's complex, Everything it's like every element, they go together. And every time you answer one, you end up in another.
Yeah, you just open up a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, it's like a snail, you go from one part to another like this.
Yeah. Well, I know we've been on the phone for a while now, so I don't want to, like I mentioned before, take up your entire day. So we can kind of wrap it up. Yeah, that's right. It is night there. 6 hour difference.
Yeah.
But I just had some kind of quick fire questions for you. But just to wind down, I was wanting to know if there are any books that you recommend, or any books that you're reading right now that you would want to tell people to read themselves.
Right now, I'm reading 2 books. I'm reading The Last Michel Houellebecq. It's a French author. I don't know if it's translated yet in English. I think it will be, because he is translated. I didn't finish it yet. I don't know if I would tell people to read it. He's a singular writer. But I read a classic. It's less risky to talk about that. I read Guy de Maupassant these days. He's a guy who he wrote some short novels about fantastic, and I'm reading this. It's a read that I've made when I was younger, and I'm rereading it. I think it's a good book.
What is the name of the book again?
It's Fantastic Tales, actually. The name would be Fantastic Tales, and the author is Guy de Maupassant. This is what I'm reading now and enjoying. It's about, apparitions. It's stories about the guy who bought an old furniture, and then one day cleaning it, he finds some hair inside the furniture, and then he gets haunted by the hair. Things like this.
Huh. Yeah, I'll definitely. I'm going to check that one out. And then as far as music, are there any bands or music that you recommend?
I listen many things in many styles. It's different.
The grindcore professor's music that you have.
No. So I listen to metal music, actually. I like metal. I like rap music. I like electronic music. I like many styles of music. I don't know what
any
to say.
favorites?
There are so many.
That's
So many.
That's fair. That's fair. I know that's a difficult question.
Yeah, it could be in so many different styles. Wouldn't mean anything to answer. Like, you know.
Okay, and then
But I listen to music a lot and constantly when I'm working.
yeah, no, that's one of my personal favorites has always been Radiohead. That's always one of my go-to, and then John Frusciante. Those are my two kind of go-tos.
Okay, let's say Massive Attack, for example. I can say this one. Massive Attack, Sonic Youth.
Mhm.
These are bands that I listen for years now, and I never get tired of it.
Yeah, well, those are two good ones.
The Black Album, the one Mezzanine by Massive Attack, it's one of the best albums.
Oh yeah,
It's one of the favorite albums of all kinds.
yeah. There's one. I'm trying to think of Massive Attack song was from Helio.
Helioland,
Yeah, there's a song on there that
Girl, I Love You.
I'm trying to remember the name of it. I can't remember it. It's a female vocalist, but I'm sure after we get off the phone, I'll end up like remembering what it was. But yeah, so then the last question I have for you, what is it that you feel that you contribute positively to the world that's unique to you? And I know that can be a difficult question, but if you can summarize it in any way.
Yes, I have an easy answer to this one too.
All right.
I was a teacher in elementary schools, and this is something where you contribute because you teach some kids how to read, how to count, how to understand what they read, and you give them tools for their brain, for their future, for their possibilities of understanding the world and making choices. This is something I've made in my life that I think it was important.
No, that's a good one. That's an awesome one. The gift of teaching is priceless.
Yes, teaching is something like you take a kid, a 6 years old kid, he doesn't know how to read, and in the end of the year, he can put together some letters to make some syllables and some words and some sentences, and then understand. It's something.
Yeah, to see that's a pretty crazy transformation that
yes,
we take for granted.
There is. Oh yes, it's.
Well, yeah. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show and contributing everything that you have. It's some amazing things to think about and contemplate. And I can tell you, I've enjoyed this conversation very much.
Me too.
So thank you so much.
Very interesting. Thank you for the questions.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And the proposition, the invitation was nice.
Thank you to everyone that has listened, as well as to my guest Lobbiaz. If you have enjoyed this episode and others, I would love to hear your feedback as well as any suggestions you might have. You can contact me at grant@gtrimble.com. That's grant@gtrimble.com, or visit my website for show notes at gtrimble.com, and then click the podcast link. Don't forget to follow Lobbiaz on Instagram at Lobbiaz, that's Lobbiaz, as well as check out his website, lobbiaz.com. You can even find links there to subscribe to his Patreon to support his work as well. You can follow Figureisms on Instagram at figur.isms. And you can follow my Instagram as well, it's gtrimble_photo. If you enjoyed this podcast, please tell your loved ones and show your support by clicking the subscribe button and leaving a review, interacting with us, and don't forget to spread the word.